live, and hold on. There it goes. Someone say something. Anybody.
Hello.
There we go. Sweet, they can hear us in the live stream. Man, this technical
Wait,
difficulties.
so they all missed my funny stuff?
Wow. They'll just have to listen to the episode when it's released to get the full experience.
Listen to the first 30 seconds.
They may not even heard the intro for all I know. I don't know what the fuck's going on. My OBS reset all its sound settings for some reason. So that was fun.
I feel like you have more computer problems with like OBS and stuff than anybody else.
I think it was the Windows update. I installed a pretty hefty Windows update the other day, and it may have just started resetting shit.
That could be. I had to uninstall the last Windows update I installed because it messed up my league. It was like making me go at like 30 FPS and just terrible stuff.
I have had so many problems recently. I don't know about anyone else out there, but I've had so many problems with the League client recently, just being garbage. And I thought it was only me, and then I talked to my buddy Wrecker, and he's having problems too. And now Impact is having problems after an update. So,
well, this was like a month ago, but
I've been having it for a month straight. So,
yeah, I uninstalled the last Windows update. I installed and it fixed it.
I just load slow after games, like the post-game shit just takes like a solid minute to come up. It used to be like instant. Everything else runs fine so far.
That comes up slow for me, and then as well, every time I go into a game, it resets to windowed instead of windowed borderless. So every time I get in the game, I automatically have to change it. It's really annoying. And there was one game we were playing like 2 weeks ago, and I gin alted, and my FPS dropped like 10.
That's like when I first started playing League with a trackpad and a laptop that should not have been playing.
That's just awful. But hopefully you guys out there listening to this don't have computers like that, and hopefully you aren't having as many problems as we are having. But one problem that you might have is swamp ass, and I can take care of that for you by going to moxieandzen.com/tforce. That's right. You see that? Swamp ass. That's right. That's what we're talking about this evening. No, Moxie, MOXY and ANDZEN. moxieandzen.com/tforce. Buddha Boxers has changed over to Moxie and Zen, but with the change comes new types of underwear. They now have women's underwear, and I can't say from firsthand experience. However, my wife, I wanted her to come down here and talk about it, but she said, I don't have makeup on. So anyway, she enjoys them. She very much enjoys them. It's the same high quality bamboo material you guys heard us talk about, but they also have now extra designs. For example, they have the Doom code. They have kittens or kitty cats or cats, how you want to talk about them. They have unicorns and all other sorts of stuff you can pick from. Or you can pick up just the normal colors of, black, gray, green, or blue. And I know that Vrail got a pair, and I'm assuming that he's enjoying that as well, right?
Yeah, they're super comfortable. I just got the regular black ones, but they're for sure a step up from what I normally wear. I really enjoyed them a lot.
I like this, man. You can lie to me all day. I only say that because we had a conversation pre-podcast about underwear, and Vrail had some words about underwear, but I think he's just a weird person, so it's all right.
Well, never mind. I was gonna say something stupid.
No, really, guys. This is. I wear these. I literally wear them every day. I got 5 pairs. I love them. moxieandzen.com/tforce. Use code TrinityForce at checkout for 20% off your entire order. In a few weeks, we'll be running a contest with them as well. So if you want to win some, it's coming up. We're gonna be giving away Buddha or Moxie and Zen, not Buddha Boxers, Moxie and Zen. So that's what I got for the intro of the podcast. Also, patreon.com/tforce network. Go check us out. I got to talk to Vrail here, but hopefully we're going to be setting up a meta report and get that out to you before the end of the month. I have a Nasus champion select to get out for you as well. It's about 30 minutes long from a Masters Nasus main. He has choice words to say about Nasus this season and how much he sucks. So you can hear that. But other than that, we're going to talk about some more League of Legends stuff. I've got a bunch of topics to discuss this evening, and I want to start out tonight talking about forfeiting or surrendering or trying to get out of a game faster, because I want to know what everybody's opinion is on it. And I think Vrail brought this topic conversation up to me, and I think it's a really interesting one, especially with a newer crew. And I'm going to let whoever wants to just take the floor and tell me what they think about forfeiting and why you should do it or should not be doing it.
Okay, well, I'll start. I rarely forfeit. Like, it's one of my least favorite things to do. Because, like, it's solo queue. Anything can happen. They can go for a Baron and, like, fuck it up. And then all of a sudden you win the game. And, like, if you can just hold out to 40 minutes, one team fight wins the game. So, I mean, you're either going to win or you're going to lose right there. So, I don't know. I think you lose so many games by forfeiting that you could have won. So if you only stay in for easy wins, you're not gonna. I don't know. I just don't like to do it.
I'm kind of with Impact on this. You just, even though you only have a 10% chance of winning, sometimes it's still worth just sticking in because that 1 out of 10 happens. So, and I think the other thing too, if you forfeit too early, you lose the opportunity to learn how to play when you're down a lot of the times. Now, on the other hand, if the game is there's games where I've forfeited because the players on your team are too tired. Like if your other teammates aren't going to try, if it's overly apparent, you got a 4v5 and you still have 2 other people that aren't trying. Yeah, get out of there. You're just wasting time. But I really think it's good to stay in as long as you can.
What about you, Gavin?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I ever vote yes to forfeit in a ranked game unless it is literally at the point where my teammates are just sitting in fountain screaming obscenities at each other. I've come back from way too many lost games, as people say, to think forfeiting is ever worth it. Actually, this weekend I was playing top lane. I think it was 0-3 Irelia, and then our Yi was like 0-6, raged at us, AFK'd at like the 15-minute mark. We ended up winning the game 4v5. So like you can't forfeit games, as you like Impact said. You never know what's going to happen. One fight can turn a whole game around. The other team could just not be coordinated in the late game or just make a bad call. It's in normal games, I'll forfeit. If I'm not having fun or I'm playing with someone and they just want to get out, I'm fine with that. I think that's warranted. That's not ranked, though. In ranked, I don't think you should ever forfeit. Unless, like you said, the game is absolutely hopeless.
What do you think, Pharrell?
I mean, I kind of agree. I think the idea, it's maybe not forfeiting, but when you have to like have a way to see how you can win rather than just say, I'm not going to forfeit because I don't forfeit in ranked, even though you're kind of already given up. I think it's more important that you practice trying to see what your win conditions are, even when you are super far behind. Because if you just say, oh, I'm not going to forfeit, that like you're probably still going to lose the game, but you need to try and like find those avenues of victory. Because what brought this up was I was playing a game with listeners yesterday and we were down 10k gold and we had 1 Nexus tower and I think we had our bot tower, and we just saw we had a Sona and we had a Jinx and they didn't have any kind of scaling. So we're like, well, let's just hope that we can hold on. And if our champions can get their items, we will win as the game goes longer. So it's like identifying those kind of win conditions when you're down so much. So I forfeit in ranked occasionally. It's not like I make a habit of it, but if we have like no towers and they have a late game scaling comp and we have early game and like the game's already over basically, I'm like, yeah, I'll just start a new game. Because I mean, I don't forfeit a game where I think that it's winnable, but if you have a bad comp and they have scaling and they're already like significantly ahead, then I mean I forfeit. But
I think that's a really good point. If you are going to say I'm not going to forfeit, you can't just say that like you said and just play the game. You got to say that and then say I'm not going to forfeit because this is our way back. This is our win condition. And if you're sitting there and you're saying I'm not going to forfeit because, well, shit, I have nothing. I have no idea how to come back into this game. Then those are scenarios where it might not be bad to forfeit, but it's always worth at least trying something. I don't think a 20-minute surrender or a 15-minute surrender is ever warranted, regardless of team comp and game situation, except for, I guess, in extreme situations where they're barreling down and they're about to kill your Nexus at 15 minutes. I think there's always room to come back up until you get to that point where you don't see any more win conditions. I've been in similar situations where we have 3 inhibs down, both Nexus turrets down, and it seems like we're just screwed, but you have that little bit of team fight synergy, or you have that really good scaling split pusher, or you just get good wards and you get a pick and you turn the game around. There's just a lot of opportunities to come back as long as you know or have an idea of how to do so and you're not just milling about.
I used to be of the mindset many years ago that I wanted to knock out as many games as I possibly could, not because I had a limited amount of time, but just because I figured in the time that I have, I want to knock out as many games. It's easy. I just want to knock out a lot of games. The faster I can win or the faster I can get in the games, the more LP I'll gain. But over time, I slowly started to realize that it's not necessarily the case and that there's a lot of chances to come back. the way I started to frame it to myself, and I try to frame it to others when we're playing, is that you are practically playing or paying to play this game when you play ranked, because you are gambling LP every time you go into a ranked game. You are saying, I'm putting up 17, 20, whatever amount of LP that I'm either going to gain or lose, and I'm going to do everything I can to gain that LP. So if I'm putting up something in order to gain something back, I'm going to try my hardest that I can within my control to turn that around and gain all that LP, or get my money back, right? Like if I'm sitting down in Las Vegas and gambling, I'm going to try to play toward the rules and play the best I can so that I have the highest chance of winning. Now I realize gambling and LP aren't necessarily the same, but it's like the easiest way to bring the two together. And the only time that I'm really surrendering is if they're knocking down my Nexus at, anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. If an inhibitor at like 20 minutes, and it's fairly obvious that someone's one-shotting everybody on the team, and we don't have any way of taking down those super minions quickly enough to be able to contest anywhere else on the map, then I might surrender. But we're talking like they have just completely rolled over us. It's 20-1, 20-2 or something. But other than that, even if it's like 50, or if it's like 12-6, I'm not surrendering, because that 6 extra kills on the team doesn't mean anything if they're not using it. If the enemy team isn't actively trying to push down objectives and they give you a 5 or 6 minute window, just sit there and farm, it's free experience and it's free gold for you. And something else that I've heard previous is that sometimes when they do knock down the inner turret or do knock down the inhibitor and you're able to stall it out there for a little bit, you're actually gaining all this extra gold and experience you wouldn't be gaining otherwise, because the minions are funneling into your base, and now you're able to funnel that money onto somebody you can turn the team fight around. Because that every time you kill a super, or it's not a super minion, super minion, you're getting more gold than you would with a previous wave. So kind of start framing it in a way that is positive. You put a positive spin on it, and you'll end up seeing that you'll start winning more games overall. Now, I guess this leads over to the discussion of, is there's dodging? Are we dodging rank games?
I'll dodge based on like troll picks, I guess. Like if I have like an 80 carry and they lock in like Sona because they don't want to play 80 carry, I'll probably dodge that game. But I don't, or like if my team's already flaming in champ select, that's probably a good game to dodge. But I don't really dodge based on champion, or comp roster, like our team comp. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I only dodge if somebody's like actively trolling, or like if jungler doesn't have smite or something like that.
Yeah, that's I agree. That's about the only time I'm going to look at a dodge, is if I've got people cussing each other out in champ select. Regardless of whether our chances are winning, I just don't want to play with those people. I'd rather take the penalty, the slight LP penalty, and the timer. The nice thing about dodging is that you will lose a little bit of LP, but it actually doesn't affect your MMR as long as you only do it infrequently. So I would use it more so to escape toxic teammates than I would concerned about team comps, because you really have no idea. Like, yeah, their team comp looks way better than yours, but you don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe their top laner, who looks like he's going to carry the game, instead feeds 3 kills of your top laner, and all of a sudden you guys snowball out of control and win the game before they can scale, or something like that. I feel like team comp, especially the lower elo you are, does not win or lose games in champ select. It only depends on how you play it in the actual game.
Anybody else out there that's actively climbing or actively trying and rank dodging pillows or Vrail?
Yeah, I mean, I never used to dodge ever, and I've actually kind of changed my mindset on that, because kind of what Gavin said, you don't lose MMR. So if you're going to play for 5 hours and there is a situation where it's really, really bad, I mean, every game is winnable, but I've played this game long enough to know that there's games where there might be, a 40% chance. And people say that, well, that's still pretty good. That'd be pretty bad, right? But there are certain situations where a team comp is hindered, or if there's people on your team that are just flaming already, whatever. Like you said, picks a Sona ADC. I mean, your odds of winning are not 50% in that situation. So if you're going to play for 8 hours, you get 1 5-minute penalty. I mean, go get a drink of water. So might as well use it.
Yeah, and it's when you really think down to the people who climb and get high, they're not doing this with 80% win rates unless you're TF Blade. They're doing it with like 54, 55% win rates. That's the difference of 5 games over the course of 100 games, right? You're winning, well, the total delta of 10, but you're winning 5 more instead of losing those 5. If you would have dodged 5 games that were unwinnable for whatever reason, that ups your win rate by that much. It's pretty small margins that we work with here. I still am a proponent of playing a lot of games, especially if you're lower MMR or just climbing in general, because you got to learn matchups, especially like top lane. I want to play into every single champ because I want to know what the hell's going on up there. But like if your team is just fated to lose, like we've been saying, it doesn't hurt you nearly as much to dodge as it does to lose that game.
Like, here's an example. Like, let's say you have a Tryndamere top, a Yi jungle, a Jhin, and like I don't know, Nami. You don't have a tank. So you're all AD. You don't have a tank buster, ADC. And you're against a Malphite, Rammus, and anything else. I mean, that you don't have a 50% chance of winning that game. Like, yes, you can win that game, but that's going to be hard to win.
In
I
that
honestly,
in that scenario, like that you just said, it's something like that, I wouldn't dodge it because I'm going to assume that the person picked Tryndamere. Like, I'm assuming pick order, person picked Tryndamere in the Malphite, person picked Yasuo and Rammus. I'm assuming that they feel so highly in their skill that they're going to be able to do something in the game. I'm also assuming they're not tilting. But like one of those, I should dodge it. And that's one of those games where, like, if you're actively climbing, you should be probably dodging that type of game. But those are the type of things that I'll give somebody the benefit of the doubt and say, we can still win before 20, 25 minutes. We just can't fuck up. I know that's asking a lot, but overall, I agree with you. You should be dodging games like that. You should be dodging. Dodging is a very powerful tool to use to help climb. And Vrail, you were going to have something to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I was gonna say I wish I dodged more, but then I get lazy. I'm like, yeah, maybe we can win. But I've lost so many games where I'm like, oh, should I dodge this game because they have 3 power picks and we have 4 off meta picks? And I'm like, no, I'll just play it out, and then I just end up losing. So it's something I wish I utilized more, but I'm just like, I'm already in champ select. I got my role, I got my champion. Let's just go with it. But I still think because you don't lose your MMR, which is the most important thing, you're just gonna get the LP back almost immediately as long as you win. So I think depending on where you are on the ladder, it's a tool that you should think about using. But I would only use it. I think y'all are right. If your teammates are toxic and like actively planning on like being just total trash bags in the game, then I think that's an appropriate dodge. But if you have like a totally off meta team and they have like the number 1 win rate mid laner, the best bot lane, really strong jungler, then I think it's something you could think about doing. It's not, you don't need to do it all the time, but there are certain situations where you just have a really bad feeling about the game. Just go ahead and dodge it. And then, it's only 3 LP. You're no worse for the wear.
Yeah, I would say look, and if you don't see a win condition on your team, that's a good dodge. I think in your example, that's going to be a really hard game to win, but the win condition I would see is Tryndamere and Yi set up in the side lanes and literally you never team fight and just run away from their team. That's really hard to execute, but I might try playing that out depending on how I'm feeling, if I'm feeling hot that day or if I'm not, But yeah, it's really, you got to just kind of figure out, do you think you can win? Is this worth a dodge? And then make that decision.
Well, I think what Gavin and Vrail both just said is important. Is Vrail was talking about how sometimes you just don't feel confident in your team. And maybe you've already lost a couple in a row. Maybe that's why you're feeling that way or for whatever reason. And like what you were just saying, if I'm feeling hot, maybe I will play that game. And I think that's important because if you're feeling like maybe I can't win this game, you're probably going to play worse. And maybe like the first sign of something bad happens, you're mentally rattled at that point. Whether it's fair or not, or whether what you thought was true or not, a lot of times it is down to like kind of how you feel a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental in this game. Like getting tilted is a real thing. Like, I don't know.
Actually,
So if you're not feeling it, don't do it.
Speaking of tilted, I was going to bring that up on the forfeiting too. There's one situation too that I will say I try not to forfeit, but there's like, let's say you're pretty down and maybe you didn't have a good game, right? You played poorly. You had one of your bad games. And not only that, but you're getting flamed by 2 people. They're wanting to surrender and, you're just saying no. And a lot of times you're just getting yourself more tilted by sitting in that game, listening to that. which you could just totally mute all and just like move on. But I'm just saying, if you're already upset, maybe you're not doing that. Maybe you are typing back and you're just staying in that game out of spite. And then when you queue up for your next game, you're just going to be more frustrated and more upset. You're going to queue up for that game. So maybe that in those situations, sometimes forfeiting
On that
better
same note,
to
I think
save yourself.
If you ever forfeit, take a break. Even if it's just a 5-minute break, take a break. Because most likely if you forfeited, it was not a good game. So I know I've had games where I'm stomping and then my team votes against me 4-1 to the forfeit, and then I'm just pissed off and I go into the next game and play very badly. Regardless of whether you're doing good or doing bad, if you forfeit, I want to start taking breaks. I need to start taking breaks. Take 5 minutes, get that glass of water, walk around a little bit, maybe watch a YouTube video, and then get back in it.
You know, all this conversation about mentality and whatnot, many moons ago, we did a whole mentality series on this podcast. And if you guys want to listen to that, you can go back and find it. You can just type like Chris Alphanar, Trinity Force in the website or YouTube and find it. But other than that, I think what we're going to do Wednesday now is I'm going to try to get Chris on this podcast. He's a master level psychologist, and he also works with some of the esports teams. Namely, he's worked with the Copenhagen Wolves previously. He's worked with he's worked with the league team. I want to say he's worked with their CSGO team and whatnot, working on mentality. I think it'd be a good time to start rehashing those subjects and bring him back on and start talking about all the stuff that you guys talked about, because there's a lot of things that you can do mentally in this game, especially at the end of the season now, that'll actually help you gain elo. And you know what, this made me realize I think it's gonna be a really good topic conversation is to have Chris on here. And I also am gonna see if I can't get Weldon to come back around and come back on the podcast, though I know he's a little bit bigger at this point than he was previously, so seeing if he'll have the time to come back on will be interesting. But Weldon's a big fan of the show and a big fan of us, so that'll be fun. But so something for you guys to look forward to. I'm gonna try to get Weldon back on, and I'm definitely gonna have Chris come back around and talk about mentality. So I would really like. I'm gonna be honest. I couldn't think of a good transition there. I was gonna try to transition that in some way or somehow into talking more about other things we have go on. But
you know what tilts some people? Getting counter jungled.
Oh my God, this dude did it! I was trying to turn it into Rift Herald. Excuse me. I was trying to turn this into Rift Herald discussion by saying something like, I don't fucking know, but yeah, you know what? Counter juggling, that's a good one. You know, we've been talking a lot about juggling recently over the past fucking month. Ever since Pillow really came on, we've been talking a lot about juggling and counter juggling, and I feel like it's like the go-to conversation. But for whatever reason, between the end of season 7 and most of season 8, it's been the jungler wins your game. Like, it's not necessarily as prevalent as it was previously, but like the jungler has such a big impact in the game that if you're not actively trying to do something out of the jungle, you're losing the game for your team. So I want to talk about countering the counter jungler, or stopping the counter jungle from happening. And I guess I'm gonna have to put somebody on the spot for this. Pillow, I know you're our active jungler on this podcast, but do you know anything off the top of your head, a way that, like, if you are being counter jungled, a good way to counter that counter jungle?
Well, I mean, a lot of times it's feel. I mean, if you go top, or let's say you're starting red side, you did a 3-camp gank top or something, and the other jungler's going to look at you. He's going to see that you don't have blue buff. He probably and maybe I was starting top side on that red side, which is why I ganked top. So he's already started his red buff potentially on whatever jungle he is. He's already at your blue buff. So you just go and his blue may or may not be up. It probably is on that kind of a situation, but I don't know. You just kind of got to feel it out. Like, that he's going to kind of be there. So what I usually do is try to get deep. To counter it, is the best way to do it is invade him. Like, I've seen a lot of times this season, it feels like they're playing like top half and bottom half of the map. The junglers are now. I don't know. I kind of feel that way. But I mean, deep vision helps. Maybe a different gank in a different lane that he's not going to be able to be there. Ping your other side lane that a gank might be coming his way. So I don't know. Those are some things.
Yeah, I think there's, I guess, 2 types of counter jungles from what I've seen, and I'd say I don't jungle, but just kind of watching the game and playing the game. There's the counter jungle that's trying to kill you, and then there's the counter jungle that's trying to avoid you and steal all your shit. So we're talking like, let's say a Lee Sin that gets ahead and then starts trying to kill you in your jungle versus a Nunu that just runs in, steals your stuff, and gets out. I think you kind of deal with them in a very different way. Like Pillow said, if it's the one that just gets in, steals your stuff, and runs away, you kind of just have to mirror them across the map, try and take their stuff when they're taking your stuff, try and use vision to anticipate what they're doing. Really hard to collapse on them. Versus something like a Lee Sin waiting at your red buff trying to kill you. If you know he's there or you suspect he's there, ping your top laner, ping your mid laner. That collapse that kills him, hopefully, or at least blows that Lee Sin's or other kill-based counter junglers' abilities or utility, puts that guy behind and helps your guy back in and just generally makes your team feel better. It can result in kills for your top laner, kills for your jungler, kills for your mid laner, and can really shut down what they're trying to do. And then lets your jungler, if the other jungler's dead and they're still at decent health, start counter jungling back and catch back up. So I think you can help a lot with good team play and good vision. But then, like Pillow said, you kind of also have to understand what you're really going up against and how to mitigate the damage as much as possible.
I think another thing you can do, if you're getting counter jungled, is if they're jungling in your jungle, they're not ganking. Like maybe they gank afterwards, but if you know that they're at your blue and you know you can't contest, maybe make that play like mid lane or something and get your mid laner ahead. Because then at least as a team, you're still going like at least even. Like you're getting a little behind because your buff got stolen, but now your mid laner's ahead because you ganked for them. So I mean, as a team, you're still doing okay. Where if you like try to fight them at your blue buff as he's there, let's say you don't get the blue buff and he kills you, now you're really far behind. And so like it can be really difficult to stop the snowball of counter jungling from happening if you like take a bad fight when he does it, because it's just going to keep like he's just going to keep getting stronger and stronger, and you're going to have less of a chance to deal with it. So I think it's important to realize like can you collapse on him? If so, maybe do that. If you can't collapse on him, can you counter jungle him? If so, maybe do that. If not, then maybe your third option would be ganking. So I think like those are like your three main opportunities that you can do to kind of stop that counter jungling.
Yeah, so I think like kind of what you're saying is, like we've said in the past, don't give up something for nothing if you can avoid it. Right? Like
Yeah.
you said, if you can gank mid while you know you can't stop him from doing your jungle, trade a little bit of your power for your mid laner power, your top laner power, your bot laner power, or whatever it is.
Did you guys talk about warding? Did I miss that? I know I had to run away for a moment.
Just now?
No,
I
previously.
think
Like during when I ran away. Did we talk about warding up our jungle or prepping with wards?
We said trying to get vision, keep tabs on him as much as possible. I don't know if we got too much into specifics about it though.
Because that's something that's overlooked with countering the counter jungle is warding, and that's like not even just warding your buffs. I know you said try to ward, try to do this, but like telling people where to ward. We've talked about warding in the past, but like warding raptors is a really, really good one for any kind of counter jungling. Warding that little route there right between raptors. Like if you are actively being counter jungled and they're going to be on whatever side of the map it is, warding like right there in raptors or warding just outside of it. And the same thing goes for the other side. Warding between blue and grump gives you a really good idea of where that enemy jungler is at any time. But you guys pretty much talked about it. You just need to track the enemy jungler or have an idea where they're at. If they're in your jungle, you just have to find an alternate route. Either be on the opposite side of the map. But you can also look, right? If you're being counter jungled, you're being counter jungled for a reason. That is one, to keep you down, but two, there are also preparing to gank a lane that potentially is ahead or a lane that is pushed. So if they're counter jungling you, they're likely on the side of the map that is dominating or is an easy gank. So like bot lane, for example, if bot lane is being constantly pushing the tower, they're going to be on your bot side of that map because they're going to be ready to help tower dive that. So you know where they're at. So potentially you could be there to help with the counter gank if you know what's coming soon. A lot of that comes to macro sense of play and playing a lot of games and getting counter jungled once or twice. But you kind of get the sixth sense of playing when you're a jungler, that you have an understanding of where that enemy jungler is going to be and why they're going to be there. And if you imagine the game being at 8 minutes, you can imagine that the enemy jungler is probably headed bot side to help your team take out that bot tower, assuming that they're the ones winning the game.
Well, and I play a lot of support too, and it's one thing that I see, and this is because I'm a jungler too, but like a lot of supports, if they're, let's say you're playing support and you're losing lane pressure, you're not winning lane pressure. A lot of times you'll see supports come back to lane with their they'll just come straight back to lane, like when they have a sight stone. And like they can help on warding toward like your side of the jungle there on that side, and that's going to help your mid lane gank. Like your mid lane, you're going to see that mid lane roaming down on you, or jungle coming from your side of the jungle. They just don't think about that. Their side of the jungle can protect them as well. They'll just like sit on wards in lane because you're never going to ward that other person's tri bush or the bush on the other side of the river if you're on the other side.
Mhm.
So use them is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. You just have to put them in a different spot. A lot of times supports only ward when they're up, and trying to get and have pressure on dragon and stuff.
How many times do you hear that? Use it. Do it. Do this. Do that. Make sure you're doing this. And people still don't fucking do it. Hell, I know I have a problem with not doing some stuff that I preach. And that's some minor things. Kind of like we're going to talk about Rift Herald this evening, not taking Rift Herald enough, or not necessarily not checking the map enough, but not pressing tab enough to understand what the enemy has and still thinking that I have more than they do. And paying more attention to my tab has actually helped me win lane more often or not, because then I know I can't trade it on them. They've completed their Trinity force in top lane, and I'm still sitting on 2 pieces of it. Well, I'm not going to engage in that person anymore because I'm not winning that trade. BF sword
I
versus
tab
sword.
every 2 seconds. I literally am tabbing all the time.
Do you really?
Yes. If I looked at my minimap as much as I press tab, I would be a lot better. I'm just like constantly have it up. Maybe I miss a lot of CS because of that too. It's always in the way.
Well, there you go. You know what you have to work on? That's going to be your personal goal till the end of the season, is to look at the mini-map as much as you press tab.
Yeah, there we go. Baby steps in the right direction.
I did read some interesting posts today about what should I work on next. And one person said, I get the CS, I can do this, here's my OPGG to realize it. And then someone had replied to the thread and said that your next piece to work on is trading in lane. It's CSing and trading properly in lane, because there's a lot of times, we played last night into that Darius. You remember how Gavin, you remember I kept flaming that Darius for being bad?
Yeah.
But the only reason I'm saying, I was saying to you guys, I'm like, this Darius really isn't that good, I'm just fucking playing like shit, is because he would run up, miss his Q, or he would run up to do a minion and then eat my Q and I'd run right out. And so he would take this extra damage. It's just the fact that he did more damage to me and killed me right when he caught me. But there's things like that. Like this Darius, he's using his abilities to farm, but he's not respecting the fact that I have my abilities up as well that I can use to counter on him, or auto attacks to counter on him. And that happens a lot of time in a lot of lanes. People tunnel too hard on the minions and they're not tunneling on properly trading. And that gives you the advantage in the lane.
Yeah, and in that case, right, what you were saying basically is that you should not have been able to get a single farm, and you were able to.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily that you then won lane or something off of it, but these little advantages that you get by trading properly means you get that much a little bit more ahead, that gets you a little more ahead and a little more ahead, and then you kind of just snowball out of control. That's the benefit of trading. It isn't necessarily that it always results in an easy kill or a massive upset in the lane or something. It's that you can build small leads by using your resources properly. I remember a long time ago, I think it was a while back, that may have even been on your guys' podcast, that somebody said that if you're sitting at lane at full health and full mana, you're not playing right. You should be, unless you're losing lane really hard and you're just trying to play safe, right? You should be using your health and your mana because you have health and mana regen. You got to use your resources to get a CS lead, to get a health or a mana lead, to get some kind of lead in lane. The goal isn't to sit there and bank health and mana, because that stuff doesn't go over the cap, right? It's the same thing back when I played StarCraft. Common saying back then was, you mine basically, let's say it's equivalent to gold. You're not going to build a trust fund at the end of these games, right? At the end of the game, all your gold's gone. You start over from scratch. If you're not constantly spending it, then that gold is meaningless, right? So
There's
you got to
another good
use your
one.
resources.
A lot of people here listen to podcasts likely play Hearthstone in their spare time, and your health in Hearthstone is another resource to use, whether it be tapping as a warlock or using a weapon to clear minions off the board. Your health is a resource. You just have to manage how much health you have and have an understanding of how much damage the enemy can do. Same thing goes in League of Legends. You can take trades, but you can walk out of that trade technically healthier than you were previously, because now the enemy is in a spot where if they walk up, they're eating a full combo and dying. Like, you have to have an understanding of how much damage the enemy is capable of, and whether that's as Garen running your face into that Darius over the course of 3 matches to get an idea of what kind of his combo can do and how much damage he can do. But sometimes that's what it takes. You just have to. We talked about it 2 podcasts ago. The 7-match. We talked about the 7-match rule. You're playing 7 matches. During that time, you should have a pretty good understanding of what champions you're going to be seeing a lot of time in that lane. So you should have, by the time you walk out of there with 7 or 10 games under your belt, you should have a really good or a good foundation to build upon of how much damage I can take in a trade and how much damage I can dish out. Everybody just kind of sits back. They'll go, uh-huh. Yeah.
I would say
we're all
that's
making good points.
that's one of the best ways to learn a champion. I feel like when I try and learn a new champion, I play way over aggressive the first few games because I want to see what the limits are and then slowly back off from there. Or don't back off and continue to feed and then stop playing the champion. One of the two.
So when I play new champions, I do nothing but farm. I just play like a bitch, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna figure out how good they are, I'm gonna need to have gold and not be super far behind. So I just try and farm and then pick my places when I want to fight, where I either have a really good fight or I think I'm strong, even though I don't know for sure. But that's kind of how I play in general. I'm fairly conservative when I play.
Yeah, you play like a little bitch.
I wouldn't say I play like a bitch, but I definitely err on the side of caution more than some people.
So here's the big difference, right? You play like a little bitch. I've played enough with Pillows to know that he plays balls to the wall all the time, no matter what champion he's playing. Dude, you're muted, by the way. Yeah, your headset took it down.
I was gonna say I feed, yes.
Yeah, no. I played with Pillows to know enough that he goes balls to the wall as much as he can. Impact actually, you kind of play between both of them. You really do play the fence with everything that you talk about. That's kind of why Dom's like, you're the new Dom. And I know Gavin well enough at this point to know that he plays the fence as well. So it's kind of like interesting to see the polarizing, because I'm balls to the wall as much as I possibly can. That's why my score is either 10-0 or 1-10, right? I don't give up.
Man. You either win hard or you lose hard.
That's right. And then I just go, oh, God, why are we losing this game? Oh, wait. It's not, because I'm the one feeding. That's why. All right, so we've talked about counter juggling. We have talked about when to forfeit. Have we talked about the overstaying issue?
I don't think so.
So do you guys know what I mean here when I say about fixing the overstaying issue?
I think so. Are you referring to basically either getting a kill or forcing it back and then trying to do something and not having time before the other player gets back?
Okay,
Is that kind of what you're talking about?
I have the perfect example. I played a ranked game earlier, and I'm pretty confident we lost the game off of this play, where we so it was I can't remember who. I think we had a Varus ADC and a Kha'Zix jungle, and their Renekton top and Jhin ADC were both alive. Everyone else was dead. We had an inhibitor that was half HP, and we were trying to take it, and both the Jhin and the Renekton had their GAs up, and it this is an overstay. Maybe this is overcommitting would be a better way of doing it, but we could have gotten the free inhibitor and backed out, but instead our Kha'Zix decided to dive the Nexus turrets and sacrifice himself for their 2 GAs, and then he died anyway, and we just got their 2 GAs and then didn't get the inhib, and they kind of spiraled off of that to win the game. So you have to be careful when you're this maybe comes back to me being more passive. I was like, why would you dive that there? We had the inhib for free. We could have backed up, reset, and then gone Baron or something like that.
No, because that's the correct play. And you both are correct. The overstaying issue is something that I see a lot in bronze and silver games, is that players will get some kind of wipe or something, and they will go ahead and take Dragon, a tower, whatever it is. But then they don't look at the death timers, and they continue to push on. And now they're like, well, maybe we're going to get Baron, or maybe we're going to spend time clearing out the enemy jungle, or maybe we're going to push for that next tower, right? We don't have Rift Herald, but we have a minion wave. We're going to push the next tower. And I think at this point in the game, a good rule of thumb for everybody is to look is if the enemy death timers have anywhere between 6 and 10 seconds left, or less, of course, you should just back away from whatever objective you're likely going for, assuming the objective isn't almost dead. and reset so that you have time to run back out. Because keep in mind, if you back, it takes you about 30 seconds, a little less as the game goes on, to get back out into the fray. So if you count that in, it's only going to take you 15 seconds from the base and out to meet back up with the enemy and have another brawl. Otherwise, you potentially are dying, giving up 40 seconds, and then that snowballs on top of it. And that's kind of what's going off of what Frail said earlier. Had that Kazakhs not dove the tower, they would have had a third man alive, and they would have had the inhibitor down, and they could have started playing around that, because that third man being alive potentially means a Baron, because it's a Kazakhs, it's your jungler. That could have been a Baron rolling into it. You start going through all these who's ifs and what's its scenarios, but yet that's the overstaying issue, and I don't know if there's a simple fix for it. Maybe you guys have a better way of explaining it than I do, but I'm just sick of seeing people sit and try to take too much.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful examples that I think is, and this used to happen a ton. I think it still does a decent amount, but I think people kind of caught on, is we take their inhib, everyone backs, and they get Baron before we can get to it. Like, even though you had the power, you pushed in, you took their inhibitor, then your whole team decides to back, and maybe you stayed right until they all came up after you won a big fight, then you back, like, we're super far ahead, and then all of a sudden the enemy's slain Baron Nashor, right? It's understanding what you actually can take, and when you take it, what opportunity cost you're kind of giving up. Because like you said, 30 seconds to get back to base, heal up, and then buy your items and get back out on the map, that's pretty much a death at mid-game, right? Timer-wise. It's not gold directly to the enemy, but it's the time off the map. It's pretty drastic. And I guess the first thing I was saying, the whole killing somebody and then not understanding when they're going to get back to lane is especially true now in the early game in top lane. I'm sure it's in mid lane and bot lane too. Now the death timers are a lot lower. You used to be able to, if you killed somebody solo in the first few minutes of the game, shove in the wave, get at the turret back, and then get to a bounce wave. Now, by the time you get that wave shoving, they're back at their tower, especially if they have teleport. But even if they don't have teleport, you respawn in a couple of seconds. It's almost as soon as they die, they're getting back on the map, and then you don't have time to do what you used to be able to. So understanding that, you see a lot more of if I kill somebody, I'll kill a couple minions, maybe start a slow push, or just keep it from pushing and back immediately to try and minimize the loss I take from being out of lane.
Is there like a checklist we could tell people to go through in their head when it comes to all this? I know, like, a lot of these things that we are discussing are likely second nature. In the game, there's a lot of times where we'll go, all right, well, we shouldn't be pushing for this, not necessarily because there's 6 to 10 seconds left, but because I've played enough games that I have a good feeling of when the enemy is going to return, or when I should be turning on Baron or whatever. Is there some kind of mental checklist somebody could go through that helps them get used to playing this, or is it just how many games you have to play? I'm just trying to think of a way that we for our listeners, we can go, this is what you can do to make this happen.
So I think what you can do is I think like the three main things we've all talked about are death timers, other objectives on the map, and then, well, I guess you can just say those two. So you can look at the death timer and then add 25 seconds to it, and that's when they will be back in lane, unless they have TP, as we already talked about. So like, I think that's the first step, is figure out when are they going to be back in lane, because that gives you an idea of how much time you have to do the next thing. So let's say you're bot lane and you double kill them with your jungler, and death timers are 9 seconds, so not very long. So that means in 34 seconds they'll be back at bot lane tower. So let's say you want to shove the lane first of all. So you shove the lane and you have 19 seconds left before they're back. Or you can say you'll have 25 seconds or something. Then Dragon's up too. Well, then you need to think about, do I have, in 25 seconds, can I take Dragon and get out? If the answer is no, throw a ward down and back off. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how you can think about death timers. The next thing is, what are you going to lose by taking this objective? Let's say you have enough time to shove in the bot lane, get the Drake, and get out. Is there an objective on the map that's higher priority than Dragon that they can take? Like, let's say there's an inhib up or something that they could take. Is there a way for them to take that by the time you shove in the wave, get the Drake back, and get back on the map? Because that's can also impact your decision. So I think like the checklist you should go through is just kind of figuring out when can they be on the map and what's up for grabs. And so I think just thinking about those two things sequentially can help you make the right decision.
Yeah, I think this goes into a just general checklist at the end of a fight kind of thing. It's one of those things where you look at the map and you see what the state of it is, and then you decide what can you do at that time, like Impact said. And then obviously the longer a game goes on, the shorter that post-death time becomes, right? Because the more often you're getting closer to their base, your their enemy movement speed or movement abilities are becoming faster, and the less time you have to do those things. The death timers get longer, but the reaction time post-death timers gets shorter. So you just got to kind of keep on top of that, understand, and that's the part that really takes the practice, understanding how fast you can take things. Obviously, if you've been playing 100 games as a champion, you know your damage. You know, I can take this tower in 15 seconds versus I can take this tower in 30 seconds, or I can't take this tower at all. Versus your first time on a champion, you have no idea, right? You're just going to kind of wing it and see what happens. I think it's just important to, like Impact said, if you don't think you can do it, don't do it. Don't take the risk. A lot of the times, taking that risk, especially in those low elos, is what results in that reverse sweep and then that lost game or lost objective or something. So I like to look at the map when I get a kill and see where everybody is. Like if I get a kill, I see their jungler on the bot side of the map and I'm top lane and I see I have time to shove in the wave, I'll shove in the wave. If I get a kill and I'm low and I don't see the jungler, you can't shove in that wave. You're not safe, right? You got to kind of evaluate what you actually have the ability to do without sacrificing too much and getting punished heavily for it.
Dude, top lane between like levels 1 and 6, assuming you haven't backed, you're not pushing in that wave after a kill.
No. Unless you got some insane wave clear.
Which
or your jungler to help you.
Yeah, or your jungler's there to help. Yeah, you can't get that wave in fast enough. At least not with the champions I play.
No, so we always say push in the wave, bot lane, mid lane, all those type of shit. If you get a kill levels 1 to 6, 1 to 8 even, and you don't have like some kind of big ticket item on you, big ticket item being like BF sword or something that costs over 1,000 gold, like you're not pushing that wave fast enough. The good rule of thumb I've always said this is look at your minions where they're walking from the base, so you can tell where the enemy minions are at on the exact opposite side, so you know when your minion waves are going to crash together. But if you can't clear an entire wave, including a cannon minion, in like, I don't know, 6 seconds, 7 seconds maybe, like, you shouldn't even be trying to push that wave out. You should just let it crash, stay, and sit. Maybe you have to equalize it out by getting the minions to be the exact same, or just let it crash into the enemy. But you just need to get the fuck out of there and go by.
There are a few things worse, especially in top lane, than attempting to push a lane out. The enemy laner gets back right before it hits tower and freezes it right outside of their tower, and you have to then back. You're going to miss out on XP, gold, and then when you get back to lane, you're going to have a very, very hard time safely farming because you're going to have to be so far up in the lane. So you can see games, and if you watch streamers or something, you'll see this occasionally happen where they'll die, but then the enemy laner will attempt to push out a lane, won't make it happen in time. They'll get back, and all of a sudden, the enemy's getting zoned off, even though they got the kill. It happens all the time, and then it basically negates that advantage you just got yourself. So you got to understand how fast you can push. I think that's one of the things that comes with time, but one of the most important things to learn just generally is understanding how fast you can do things.
And that is one of the advantages of taking teleport. Like, I know that's not really what we're talking about, but if you don't have time to shove that wave and you have TP up, you can TP back to the wave, which maybe you're thinking, why would I TP to a wave I was just at when I could have tried to shove it? And it's because of what Gavin's saying. Like, the punishment for not being able to shove it when you try to is so bad that it's better just to back, buy, and you can TP to the lane right away, and you're missing maybe 1 or 2 minions of EXP, like, and gold. And so then you have your item, you can finish shoving the wave, and you don't have to be, like, super concerned that you're going to get killed by the enemy laner because you've also bought, and you bought with more gold than them. So if they try to fight you, especially if you have minion advantage, you're probably going to win that fight, so it's easier to shove it then.
Man, well said. Look at you guys. It's like you guys are true teachers at this point. I'm proud of you. I'm gonna wipe a tear.
Hey,
from
I
my-
worked in a school.
School of Hard Knocks.
Do we have time for one more? What are we at? We're at 50-ish.
Do we want to talk Herald real quick?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. We got 10 minutes-ish to do it. Why not? We talk about Rift Herald. I know I was talking earlier today, and it was something that I was thinking about, is that I don't take Rift Herald enough. And I don't think enough people take Rift Herald outside of like pro playing games. And I'd like to see that it have a higher priority than most dragons that aren't Infernal Drake. Now, I understand that Mountain and Wind and all that type of shit is actually really good, and depending on team comp, it could be superior. But like, there comes a point where I feel like a jungler should be actively trying to set up Rift Herald to be taken so that we can use it to either to turn a game around. My point being is that, like, let's say the 5 of us all decide that we want to play Flex Q, right? In my opinion, taking Rift Herald and Flex Q actually can turn the game around in your favor if you are behind, and it can snowball if you're ahead, more so than taking that Mountain Drake or taking that Wind Drake, at any point in the game. Because Mountain Drake, in my opinion, it's great. I want to take it, absolutely, prioritize it. But like, if the enemy has control, that leaves the top side of the map free for you, or it should, assuming you're top laner. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but like, I don't know. I like Rift Herald, and in my opinion, no matter the type of game, more people should be prioritizing trying to take it as much as they try to take Dragon.
I think Rift Herald gets exponentially better the more people you have coordinating. Like you said in Flex, Rift Herald can be game-changing. In solo queue, it can be too, but it can also literally do nothing, right? So I think it's way more variable than dragons are. You know exactly what a dragon's going to give you, and while you don't necessarily know exactly what that'll do for you, it's a constant, right? A Rift Herald could get you 3 turrets and an inhibitor, or it could literally get interrupted when you're channeling it and be completely useless. But I agree. I think that Rift Herald is a massively overlooked objective. I mean, if I'm top lane and I'm smashing my lane, I want my jungler coming up and we want to take Herald. I mean, that just lets us, if I haven't taken the turret, take it for free, or send it mid and help that guy out, or send it bot and help that guy out, or, it's just, it has a really high ceiling and a pretty low floor. So like, it's hard to take unless you have decent damage, I think is part of it too. You have to have typically 2 people hitting it so you can proc that eye constantly and then DPS it down. Whereas a dragon tends to be a little bit more squishy. I think the dragon does more damage, but you can also tend to take that out without as much difficulty, in my experience at least.
I think for me, when I playing jungle for Rift Herald, like, I personally think it's a lot better when your team's up, because, and I think if you're slightly down, it's actually can be a good turning point. But I noticed, like, if you're really down, when you're taking Rift Herald, it takes a while to take, and especially, like, I'll see a lot of, like, junglers, like, they feel like they can't make a play anywhere, and so they'll just, like, go solo Rift Herald when their team's, like, down 12-3. And I just find that it's extremely hard to get a good use out of that when you're down that far. It's pretty hard to get a good use out of that. And
I mean, if
the
you're
other
down,
thing-
it's better just having it off the map. So that
yeah,
team can't take
exactly.
it.
Yeah, you don't want the other team to get it. That's true. But a lot of times, like, when you're taking Rift Herald, you're not getting gold. So a lot of times you're almost like accentuating your loss sometimes if you're really down.
Yeah,
So
you're not getting gold, you're not getting XP, right?
You're denying the enemy team the opportunity to take all your towers, though, because I think you're right where you say it's better when you're more organized, and it is for sure better when you're ahead. But for all the reasons it's better when you're ahead, if you're behind, you want to take it so your enemy team can't have it. So I don't think it really matters if you're ahead or behind. If you have the opportunity to take it, you just want to have it. It's better to be in your hands than the enemy's team, regardless of the situation. And I mean, even if you're behind, you give it to your split pusher, and then if they group and try and say it's 4v5 mid, then you just get to win the side lane for free. So I do think it's underutilized. It is trickier to use than just getting I think you said it really well. A dragon, you know what it's going to give you. It's going to be the same regardless of how it's utilized or whatever. You're just going to have the stats bonus. So I think dragon is more valuable if you just want to like play the safe game. But if you're trying to like actively win a game, Rift Herald is incredibly useful. And like using Rift Herald, you generally want to have more people. You almost always want to have more people, because if you're hitting it on a full health turret and you don't have pressure and they have the same amount of people than you might not even get one turret. So you have to pick and choose how you use it, but I think it's incredibly useful.
I guess for me too, when I was the situation I was thinking in my head is like where a jungler is soloing it when they're down. Like if they're all at dragon, I think you're right, and you can take it off the map quickly and efficiently, where you can't even contest dragon anyway, so you might as well go get the Rift Herald. But I think the situation I was thinking in my head when I was saying, like, I'll just see a lot of junglers like soloing it when their team's down. And it's like
Well, I think
that's
any
happening,
objective you can get is a good
crushing.
objective, so it doesn't matter if you're behind. If you can get the objective, you just take it. And
Yeah,
if there's
I'm
something
just
you could
saying
be
if you're
doing that's
soloing it, it's like
Well-
15 seconds sometimes or 20 seconds, and their
Well, it's not
jungler's
quick.
like pounding your bot lane.
well, if you have something more productive to do, then yeah. But if you're just like, well, I just took my top site, I don't really have anything to do. Just because you're behind doesn't mean you're just going to let Rift Herald sit there. You still have to be just having it is good. So it doesn't matter. Like that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter the situation as long as there's not something better for you to be doing, and that's kind of your call. If you think walking over to dragon or walking bot, when like if you're top side and something's happening bot, it's not worth your time to walk all the way bot lane. Just take the Herald. It's there in front of you, and it's off the map, and you have it in your pocket.
I think that's important to really focus on that of take it when you can take it. Don't force it because it is one of those objectives that takes a while to take. And if you just decide I'm going to solo this and you don't have your mid laner push, your mid laner's not pushed, your top's not pushed, their jungler shows up and all of a sudden you're collapsed on and dead and they get it for free. It's just the same as Dragon as we've talked in the past. It's just kind of how we were just talking about overstaying. You got to understand when you actually can take it. When you can take it when they're cross map, like Braille's saying, that's really good. But like Billow's saying, you can't just have your jungler sit there and waste a bunch of time killing this thing while letting the rest of the map snowball out of control. You got to make sure you're trading something for something or getting it at an advantageous time. You can't just take it when you're going to give up too much for it.
I'm sighing because I think you can actively set up and take Rift Herald in a lot of scenarios, and it's not just something that's just there to take because someone's taking Dragon. I think you can actively play around it, but it just like Dragon, it does take some setup to do, but you have to play more to the top side of the map to do it. Hell, there's a lot of there are some scenarios where bottom lane, like we've talked about in the past, bottom lane, if you take the tower early, you should be swapping to the top, and you can take your Rift Herald at 15 minutes if bottom is going top because they've taken their bottom lane, right? So now you have extra people banging on the Rift Herald. But yeah, just like every other global objective, something has to give for you to take it, and you have to take out a jungler or you have to take out a top laner or something to be able to set it up. But I don't know. At a point in the game, just about any jungler can solo it. You can start at 17 minutes, 18 minutes, and solo the damn thing and take it. And really my whole point being throughout this is you should be looking for Rift Herald at some point if you can take it, if the game is in your control. And
yeah, like you're saying, treat it like an objective, right?
Yeah, treat it like an objective. It is an objective.
Consultation or consolation prize. Treat it like an objective.
Yes.
Treat it for what it is, a potential 2 turrets, right?
Yes, exactly. Dude, Rift Herald could bust open mid lane and completely change the course of the game for you. In a flex queue game, if you're playing with 5, focusing on Rift Herald instead of that one dragon, assuming it's not Infernal, because Infernal you have to contest. Just like that one dragon you have to fucking take. But if you're playing flex queue with 5 people, try over this week prioritizing some Rift Heralds, but don't do it until 15, 16, 17 minutes in when it's almost about to despawn, or if you can get it when they're taking a dragon. Prioritize it to take it, to use it to knock out towers and open up the map for you to be able to turn it around. Because this is what we're talking about. The game could be 16-4, but you've got Rift Herald, and now you've opened up the middle of the map. That actually allows you to come back and win the game because taking out that middle tower frees up where everybody can be.
Also, like Rift Herald late game is pretty easy to take. There have been lots of times where it's like 19 minutes and 30 seconds and we're close to it. And I'll be like spam pinging to take Rift, and my team will be like, oh, we can. It's about to despawn. And then I'll convince them to try it. And we take it in like 10 seconds.
Right.
Like, so I mean, like, just look, if it's up at 1930, you can take it so fast. Like, hitting the eye does like 10% or 15% of its max health. You can do it up until it's 25% health or something like that. Like, it's not hard to take. Most I don't know a champion that can't solo it. You could probably solo it with Soraka. I don't know.
Pretty much, as long as you can dodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every single one of his attacks is dodgeable, so that doesn't hurt.
No, because you
Just-
can dodge it. All right. I hear my baby screaming in the background. She needs to go to bed. Any last words?
Do we want to very briefly say to when you're using Herald, kind of what we should do? I know we're kind of running close to long, but
That's all right.
as a top laner, if my jungler and me pick up Herald, what we want to immediately look to do, if we're not insanely ahead, is to try and get that on top turret. I like to do that because the jungler's already top. You took Herald, so that means their jungler probably is not exerting pressure top. You can get a really fast first turret and then really open up the map, and then that lets me and our jungler get into their top side jungle and start playing havoc with that. Or take it mid lane with your mid laner, open up that part of the map. You either want to use it quickly while you still kind of have that advantage of pressure that you got it from, or if you don't have that advantage of pressure, you want to wait for an opportunity. Don't just throw it down because you have two people mid and you don't know where their team is. Get an advantageous fight, get a kill or two, and then take it. It's insanely difficult to contest a Herald when there's 5 people behind it and you only have 3 people, right? Because you got to get behind it to hit that eye, and where's the enemy team? They're going to be right behind it. So that's how you get those 2-3 turret Heralds, is you use it when you have an advantage. You don't just throw it down whenever.
Yeah, unless it's almost about to end.
Yeah, that's the one caveat. If it's about to expire, get it down wherever you are. Don't let that thing just disappear on you.
No,
Yeah.
just rock it out there.
Something went wrong if it's about to expire and you haven't used it.
Oh, there's a lot of tips and tricks with Rift Herald. Maybe we should go over those on Wednesday, because we'll go over some tips and tricks on how to use Rift Herald properly. Go and try to take it over the next couple of days as you listen to this podcast, and then we'll come back and try to give you some tips and tricks, because I've got some that I want to talk about, kind of like taking the tower before it hits it, and etc., to save it some life. There's some little things you can do.
Yeah, send in some, if you do take it, send in some notes on what you thought. If you see a better win rate, I know we like to get feedback from you guys, so it'd be cool to hear if you try it, you get a lot of success, or you try it and it doesn't go well. You know, if we can help talk through why it might not go well or stuff like that. So
I like it. Feedback at trinityforcepodcast.com. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to the Trinity Force podcast. We're going to end it there. That's episode 560. 40 more to go until we're at 600. Guys, thank you so much for listening to everything that we do and supporting us. Patreon.com/TForce Network. We will see you all on Wednesday with more discussion. Peace.
see ya.
See you up.